Welcome to Mr. Biz Radio, biz talk for biz owners. If you're ready to stop faking the funk and take your business onward and upward, this show is for you. And now, here's Mr. Biz, Ken Wentworth.
All right, welcome to another episode of Mr. Biz Radio with me, Mr. Biz, Ken Wentworth. And we got a good one this year. I guess it's this year, right? But this week, again, I talk to you guys about this all the time. We've been doing the show for so darn long. It's difficult. We're always trying to looking for new angles and new things to talk about. And this is a new thing. We literally have been doing the show all this time. We've never really talked about this. And I'm really excited to talk to our guest this week. I'm thrilled to introduce Nate Brooks, the Executive Vice President, Chief Financial Officer, and Chief Operating Officer of JAMS, the world's leading private alternative dispute resolution provider. With over 25 years of strategic, financial, and operational leadership across industries, he's steering JAMS through a transformative era of AI, virtual mediation, and market expansion. Nate, welcome to the show. Glad to have you on Mr. Biz Radio.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Yeah. So, I mean, like I said, let's dive into this. I mean, there's so much stuff I want to cover, and you've got, only got our 30-minute time limit here for the most part. As you became CFO, and I think it was around 2020, you're in the midst of COVID and everything. Now you're the COO as well, and you've overseen finance operations, all that kind of stuff. What's been the sort of your proudest, I guess, strategic milestone during that journey and across not just at JAMS, but as you've progressed throughout your career?
Yeah, I mean, at JAMS, it's pretty amazing. If you think about when I joined in May of 2020. So it was right in the midst of the pandemic. Nobody knew what this all meant for us. And I was interviewing on Zoom, and people back then, that was not the normal course of business. Right. Now, we're having this conversation on Zoom. Everybody's operating on Zoom. And I met with Chris Poole, who was the then CEO, in person. After he offered me the job, I said, I want to come in and see and touch and feel what I'm getting into, because it's just I didn't see that. And we met at a table in a conference room, a boardroom. Nobody else was there. Again, the country just shut down. But what I was very impressed by, and I can't take credit for this because it was in motion when I got here, was how quickly the whole industry, including JAMS is the leader of that, transitioned to a virtual environment. So there was about a 30-day period when things slowed down, but then it was just off to the races since then. And that the way the team was able to transition into that virtual environment and still provide that high-level service was amazing.
Yeah, and that leads me into the next thing I was going to ask you about is, so as you guys are sort of leading the way into that, I mean, I hate to use the P word, everyone, you pivot, but the shifting, the changing of the direction to virtual ADR. What are some of the lessons about agility and innovation that kind of stick with you that you guys had to not only maybe were out in the forefront of, but also maybe you got enough out in the forefront that because you were there, you're like, oh my gosh, no one's ever done this before. We can't do this. We can do this, that kind of thing. Yeah,
it was truly amazing. It's not just the software aspect or the technology aspect, but it's also the hardware, because you had to get laptops to everybody. You had to get the equipment for people to operate. And then coordinating what systems and tools we're going to use. Because back then there were, a dozen or so video conferencing tools. Zoom wasn't at the, precipice that it is today. But adapting to, I always mention to our team, we need to be technology agnostic. Do what our clients want. Use the tools that they have and the places they have. Now we've morphed. We're primarily a Zoom organization. But just having that ability to adapt to what the clients need and still provide that service to them at the highest level. One of the things we did is we created a new team. At the time, we called it a virtual moderating team. And they would be there to assist with neutrals and judges as they went through the process of administering their arbitrations and mediations, giving them the tools and the expertise to help troubleshoot as things arose. And that was very critical to our success.
I can imagine. And again, especially with what JAMS does, it would, during that time, and then I can't believe you came in at that time. What a time to come in. But before we keep mentioning this, and I know what it is, but I'm curious. I'm not sure if all of our viewers or listeners know. Tell us what ADR is. If you could define that and kind of walk through what a typical sort of ADR type of case is.
Right. So ADR stands for Alternative Dispute Resolution. And there's two primary components of that, and that's arbitrations and mediations. Mediations are two parties come together, they pick a mediator. We call them neutrals at JAMS. A neutral can be a mediator or an arbitrator. So they pick a neutral to mediate a case, and then it's a non-binding agreement. So both parties have to agree to a settlement that the arbitrator or the mediator brings forward during the session. Arbitration, on the other hand, is a binding agreement, and a lot of times it starts with the contract that may be in dispute. They'll have an arbitration clause in that contract, where they will either identify an arbitrator, they'll identify a provider such as JAMS to administer that arbitration. And then they'll go through the process, both parties will go through the process of selecting who that arbitrator is to help administer that case.
So I assume, based on your definition, that you guys probably push more so for the arbitration side, because I would imagine on the mediation side, the non-binding, as soon as you said that, set off like at least yellow flags, if not orange or red flags. Like, because I would assume on that side, how often do you run into issues where someone gets on a Zoom or even in person, and they go through things and say, yeah, this sounds kind of good. And then, 48 hours later, they get cold feet, or they talk to someone else, and, they come back, and because it's non-binding, now you're almost starting all over again. Does that happen?
I'm sure it does, but I mean, if I say non-binding, I mean, the parties aren't required to be there, and then they don't have to agree to the decision that the mediator makes. That's what I mean by that. But usually if they agree to it, they'll draft a settlement agreement, and then that'll move forward. So then that becomes the tool that they utilize to resolve their dispute. So it's not like they can just change their mind, as I mentioned. If they agree to a settlement agreement, that's a binding document. But it's really, they don't have to be there, or they don't have to agree to settle.
Gotcha. Okay. So as you're going through that process, are you so do you get referrals from other legal practices that, maybe they don't have a specialty in ADR? They don't have the department that specializes in ADR. Is that how you get a lot of your business? Or do you have also a wing of JAMS that is non-ADR stuff?
We do get a lot of referrals. I mean, it's a lot of business that comes to us through just basic need. An attorney or a law firm will work with a judge in court, and then when the judge retires and becomes an arbitrator mediator, they will utilize that person to help, because they know their expertise that they can tap into to help resolve the dispute. So a lot of it comes through us that way. We do have other arms in JAMS. We've launched a new program, or relatively new, a few years ago, under the JAMS Solutions. It's called JAMS Pathways. And what JAMS Pathways does is it helps organizations understand what their internal conflicts are before they escalate into disputes. So we help define programs to help companies and organizations resolve those disputes before, like I said, before they become disputes.
Yeah. Good stuff. Guys, we're going to break here. Again, we're talking with Nate Brooks this week. He is the CFO and COO of JAMS, wearing two giant hats there, Nate. I don't know how you do both of those jobs. I'm sure we'll talk about that a little bit more, but come back after the break. We'll continue talking about JAMS and how they are innovative on the side with ADR, as we've been talking about. We're also going to talk about some of Nate's leadership style and how he leads through innovation. Easy for me to say.
If you would like to reach hundreds of thousands of business owners every week, Mr. Biz Radio can help. Our show airs globally 7 days a week for more than 25 hours across several internet radio stations, plus 20 plus podcast platforms. Also, video exposure on the new exclusive Mr. Biz Network streaming channel, which gets blasted to 100 plus streaming platforms, and the Mr. Biz YouTube channel, and our 350,000 social media followers multiple times every week. Join Mr. Biz Nation as an advertiser by emailing us at info@MrBizSolutions.com.
Attention, Mr. Biz Nation. We have an exclusive offer just for you. Get lifetime access to scarcity countdown timers and logic links for only $69. Yes, you heard it right. Only $69. These tools will add urgency to your email campaigns and website pages, helping you increase conversions, sales, and capture more leads. Don't miss this incredible opportunity. Visit getpulsetools.com now and take your business to new heights.
Check out all 3 of Mr. Biz's best-selling books at MrBizBooks.com. Now, once again, here's Mr. Biz.
All right, welcome back to the show. And if you didn't know what ADR was, so you at least learned something new today. My grandfather used to always say, it was funny, something ridiculous would happen. And, something, he'd hear something on the radio or whatever, and it'd be something just completely innocuous and silly. And he'd say, oh, I learned something new today. It's like, if you learn something new every day, you're going to be in good shape, as you get to be an old man like me. So if you didn't know what ADR is, now you know. So you may have learned something at least from the show. But Nate, I wanted to talk a little bit more about the innovation that you guys have utilized and implemented at JAMS. So I know you had mentioned, I saw in your leadership reflections, I think earlier this year, you'd mentioned that JAMS invested in some tools like Co-Counsel AI to enhance some of your case management. So what strategic advantages have you seen, at least so far, from deploying AI, not just Co-Counsel AI, but just AI in general? Because again, I know you guys, as we mentioned, with COVID, you were out in front of a lot of this stuff. So I'm just going to go ahead and assume that you probably jumped out in front as far as law firms go with AI as well.
Yeah, I'll take a step back before we even get into AI. I'll look at security and making sure that our data is confidential and secure. That's of utmost importance, especially in the line of business we're in. Resolving disputes, a lot of confidential measures come up. So one of the things that we've developed right as I started, it was already in progress, it launched, it was JAMS Access. And that's a tool we use to help our law firms, our clients administer the cases and upload data and information and documents in a very secure environment. So that was the utmost importance. As we've moved forward, I'm going to go even before AI and talk about automation. So a lot of the things we're doing is we have our own software, case management software that's developed in-house. So a lot of the things we'll do is we're developing automation to the processes to help speed up the processes, make them more efficient so we have less staff and so forth. Now, leaping ahead into AI, we're really looking at tools, and it is a tool. It's like a calculator. It's something you have to use, but you have to trust it. You have to verify it. So we're providing tools such as you mentioned, Co-Counsel. We have another one, transcription services. We have several different varieties of that, where a tool, you use a transcription service, and it allows you to see in real time as hearings are happening, the dialogue and the transcription, and then you can tag it and you can go back to it and have video marks and so forth. So it's very impressive tools that we have out there.
Yeah, so that leads me right down, and you're kind of leading right down my way of thinking here, Nate. We must be channeling each other. So with some of the virtual ADR things that you guys are out in front of, I'm sure that's unlocked some entry into new markets where I always call it, having a presence without walls, instead of saying just brick and mortar. Everyone says that, right? I'm sure you were able to get in some of these markets where you didn't, you lacked a physical presence. You had presence without walls. How has that reshaped? And maybe it's not reshaped, because as you were coming in at the infamous time that you were, but even compared to some of your prior experience, has that reshaped sort of how you think about operational and growth strategies going forward?
Absolutely. The virtual world has really opened up all markets. We have international hubs in Toronto and London. We're in 29 physical locations across the U.S. in the major cities. But we also service some of the other cities that we were not a part of through the virtual environment. And it's really allows us to expand our footprint. It's allowed neutrals to provide services based on their expertise rather than a geographical constraint across the country, which has been fantastic. One of the things that people don't realize is that about 55% of our hearings, our mediations and arbitrations are in person or hybrid. When I say hybrid, that means somebody is virtual, but they're still utilizing a physical location. So that means 45% are virtual only. Now that varies by market. Places like Texas, it's 95% in person. Places like San Francisco is probably like 35 to 40%. So it has allowed us to expand our reach and move further out. And from an operational side of things, it's made us really look at our leasing and our space requirements. So certain markets, when leases come up for renewal, we have downsized. Other markets we've expanded, because it just depends on the market. Every market has its specific needs.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna mention that, because especially some of the statistics you rattled off, which I'm a numbers nerd like you, so I love numbers. So since COVID, do you have more physical locations or less? And what's the plan moving forward? I mean, do you feel like with 29, you've got a pretty good sprinkling in some of the major cities that you need, and a lot of the other things you could do virtually, or is it the expansion plans more? Are they more along the lines of, maybe kind of a hybrid approach?
It is a hybrid approach. And one of the things that I think has actually benefited our business to able to serve more clients is by not having those physical constraints. We don't have to say our New York office is full. What can you do in your hearing next week or next month? We can say we can do it virtually. Your question about locations, the last location we opened was in Houston, and that was right before the pandemic. We haven't opened any physical locations since then, but we are thinking about it because we have a dozen or so virtual markets that are starting to hit a critical mass where we think it might make sense to bring in a physical location, bring in a local staffing team into the marketplace.
Gotcha. Okay. So I know that one of the things that JAMS talks about a lot on your website and in the about page and things like that you're very much so rooted in values like neutrality, integrity, and client service. So I'm kind of curious, how do you ensure that your financial growth and some of these strategies, as you're mentioning, those initiatives don't compromise those foundational values that you really cling to?
Well, we're very selective in who we bring on. I mean, it comes down to that. We're making sure that we're bringing on the utmost highest quality and individuals with the best integrity. We do background checks on all of our neutrals, so we make sure that there's no compromising anywhere. And as far as expansion goes, we really focus on providing that white glove service. So we want the clients to know that we're providing the best service for them, and that's really the premise behind our growth.
Gotcha. Okay. We've only got about 2 minutes left here, but I did want to touch on one thing before we hit the next segment. Is you went through another fairly recent transition with the succession of Kimberly Taylor becoming CEO. And I think that's about the same time that you became COO, took on those additional duties. How did you navigate that leadership shift while also maintaining organizational momentum? Was Kimberly from the outside, or was she someone that got kind of promoted from within? Or was that something, did you have some continuity there with her?
Yeah, Kim's a long-term, we call ourselves jammers. So she's been a long-term jammer. She's been here since 1999. So she's come up through the organization, lots of different operational roles. She is an attorney, so she's got the background and the steadfast with the organization to make that transition seamless. Chris Poole, the outgoing CEO, he was an advisor for us. He's still very he's hands off now, but he was hands on in the transition. Really allowing for Kim and I to take on our new roles and really step into it. And Kim was a COO before I took over the expanded position. So it's been a really nice transition for her, helping me understand what she was doing more so I could help make that transition.
Yeah. Okay, that was going to be my next question. All right, we got a quick rapid fire. We only got about 35 seconds here. We all have our pet peeves, Nate, and you got to have at least a handful of them. In meetings, what is one pet peeve you have in meetings that when people do it, whether it's a virtual or in-person meeting, that you're like, oh my gosh, not this again?
I don't like meetings for meeting's sake. I like to have an agenda. What's the expected outcome? I don't like getting in there and just meeting to meet.
Yeah, so when I came from JP Morgan, Jamie Dimon, the CEO, used to say, there needs to be an agenda. It should never be longer than an hour. If you never speak in the meeting, you should have never attended. Again, keep it down, keep it narrow and all that kind of stuff. So again, talking with Nate Brooks this week, we're going to come back after the break and we're going to talk more about what's the future of ADR and what's the future for JAMS.
How would you like to have direct access to Mr. Biz to help you run your business more profitably and more efficiently? At MrBizSolutions.com, you get live access to not only Mr. Biz, but also several of his hand-picked and trusted business experts, each with 20 plus years of experience to help you optimally manage and grow your business. That's just the start of where Mr. Biz Solutions begins. Learn more at MrBizSolutions.com. That's MrBizSolutions.com.
Attention, Mr. Biz Nation. We have an exclusive offer just for you. Get lifetime access to scarcity countdown timers and logic links for only $69. Yes, you heard it right. Only $69. These tools will add urgency to your email campaigns and website pages, helping you increase conversions, sales, and capture more leads. Don't miss this incredible opportunity. Visit getpulsetools.com now and take your business to new heights.
Got a question for Mr. Biz you want answered on air? Email it to info@mrbizsolutions.com. Now, once again, here's Mr. Biz.
All right, it's our last segment with Mr. Nate Brooks here, and I wanted to make sure that we've talked a lot about innovation. We talked a lot about some of the creative things you guys have done at JAMS. Within the industry, because it's evolving so fast, especially, and again, from you guys being at the forefront of this, especially with AI, hybrid models, things like that, how do you continue to, this is a big one, this is not just for obviously firms like JAMS, but how do you foster a culture at JAMS that embraces both innovation and trusted services, and while trying to mix in, there's a third wedge of like keeping people like a team sort of atmosphere?
That is a good question. I think it all comes down to really fostering the idea generation. And really, I always tell people, you don't know where the good idea is going to come from, but it's our job as leaders to understand what is a good idea and make sure that we can bring it forward, remove those roadblocks. And in fact, we just had a internal, I think they call it hackathons in the tech industry, but we had our own innovation forum, or we challenged the organization to form teams and come and present almost like a Shark Tank environment to the executive team, their ideas on making JAMS better and improvement. Now we're getting ready to release the results of that next week, who the winners were, but every idea was fantastic, and and they were all so different. And if we could just implement those ideas, it would transform JAMS' efficiency, would provide the client experience would increase and improve. It's just amazing. But the key is really having a leadership style and a team that you can foster those ideas and then really remove the roadblocks so people can execute.
So what percentage of your employees, Nate, are like not partners? I know you have a ton of those that are probably not, obviously not in your office, but that are not physically present at least 100% of the time in the office. And do you have anyone like that that's sort of works hybrid, that's actually an employee of JAMS? And again, how do you, with the virtual environment we're so used to having now in the last, five or so years, how do you work on keeping that sort of team culture still?
No, that's a great point. And this is one of the ways we do it. We do have employees, or we call them associates. We do have associates who are fully remote. And then those who do come into the office, they don't have to come in every day. It depends on the location, and your role. If you're client facing and you're in a market like Texas where the clients are in every day, then you need to be there. But if you're in a place like San Francisco, maybe you don't need to be there every day. But one of the things we do to really keep that cohesiveness is it comes down to the leadership and the management teams and making sure that they bring that together. Some of the things we've done in the past, we'll do, a painting class, a virtual painting class, so you get everybody online and you have the smaller little groups, but it brings them together and allows them to be in almost like an informal setting to do something fun to really keep things, keep people connected. That's really the key.
Yeah, I love that. And the reason I'm asking so much about it is I'm thinking about my last role at JP Morgan. I had people in 7 different cities, a bunch of different time zones, things like that. Certainly not 29, but are there things that you do? I mean, maybe that painting class you mentioned is something like this that maybe incorporates all 29 offices, or do you kind of break it up regionally and maybe a couple of times a year you get everyone together, whether it be virtually or in person?
We do every quarter we have an all hands call. So it's where we invite everybody to come in. It's usually after our board meeting. We give an update on how the company's doing, some new events that are coming up, any new technology being rolled out, and it's really brief. And we invite all associates to attend that. We also do it on a regional basis. We'll have the regional teams get together quarterly, monthly, and once a year we have an in-person leadership meeting where a certain level of the organization we get together, we get an off-site, so we're away from everybody, and we have conversations about strategy, where the company's going, and then the idea is they take that back to their teams, because we can't have everybody show up off-site.
Yeah, no, I love that. And we would do that. I did that as well, especially with the time difference. I had some people that were in Asia and things like that, so it was difficult with the time thing. But once a quarter, we had a giant virtual session with everybody, and every person got to speak. And we would have some sort of almost like ice-breaking thing to say, that they could say, if you were marooned on a desert island, you can only take one luxury item with you, what would you take? And, you got 15 seconds basically, but it allowed everyone, we're working together, and oftentimes virtual, especially when with the time zone differences that we had on that team. But everyone sees these names in email, but they don't talk to them very often on the phone even, let alone, a virtual, and this was like pre-Zoom and all that kind of stuff. And so it was interesting to see, you learn a little bit about someone's personality, right? Someone goes, oh, I would take a radio because I love to listen to music all the time or whatever. And so you get to know that person a little bit more personally, as opposed to just seeing Nate Brooks through the email when I get in the morning that, you were working overnight in Asia and I saw what you did, in the morning or whatever. So it seemed to be, and they all loved it. I mean, everyone really, we always got really good, extremely high marks. People love to have that session and hear from everyone. And inevitably there were, there's some bunch of things that were people would laugh at and things like that. So brought levity to it. We kind of kept it light as well. I think those things are important, even if you don't get everyone together, like you said, all together. And we used to do in JP Morgan, like within the finance community, once a year, the top, I want to say 90 or 100 people would get together at some, off location, and for like maybe 3 or 4 days. And there was some strategy and there was some fun and, all that kind of stuff. But you really got to know some of these folks that, I'm working with folks a lot that are maybe in London, or maybe they're in Italy. And again, I don't really get to see them much, let alone talk to them on the phone that often. And so getting to see them and, have an adult fresca or two with them and get to know a little bit better. I think those things are extremely important. So I know ADR is positioned, like you said, for continued growth, possibly becoming the default over traditional litigation. I know hopefully that we're moving in that direction. It just seems to bog things down otherwise so much. What other systemic innovations do you see as essential to sort of lead that shift and continue that upward trajectory?
Yeah, I think it's really listening to what the client's needs, and how do we make it more accessible, justice more accessible. And one of the things that you're seeing is a lot of, speaking on the AI front, some of the lower, less complex cases. There's a lot of startup companies popping up with some AI mediators or AI, or really mediation. But it's one of those things that there's a space for it, but it's not going to overtake the entire industry, because there's so much complexity, and then history and judgment and expertise that is required, that having machines do it only is not going to work. But using the AI to assist and make things more efficient and speedy will definitely help with the evolution.
Yeah, I look at it the same way. I mean, I look at it as AI, at least at this point, as an enhancement, not a replacement in many cases. All right, we've only got about a minute and a half left here. Let's say looking ahead here, Nate, what's your sort of 5-year vision for JAMS in terms of, technology, global expansion, building the next generation of ADR services? What's sort of in the back of your mind, or maybe more towards the forefront of your mind at this point?
Yeah, it's really, how do we serve all the markets? That's really what I'm focusing on. Do we continue to do it virtually? Do we do the physical expansion? We got to stay on top of technology. Again, JAMS is not a technology company. We're not going to be the leading AI developer, but when the tools are out there, we need to adapt them and use them quickly. Otherwise, we'll be left behind for our competition. And it's really continuing to focus on that quality, bringing in quality neutrals, and holding them to a high standard, and holding our associates to the highest standards.
Yeah, I love that. I didn't mention this before, and we're running out of time here, but I wanted to touch on it, and I completely lost the train of thought. But I'm glad you brought up cybersecurity earlier, because especially with what you do, but that is such an overlooked thing with small, medium-sized businesses, and it's a huge risk. I mean, I looked up the statistic that 62% of small to medium-sized businesses, so up to like 20 million a year in revenue, if they have a breach of some sort, they go out of business. 62% of them, almost 2/3, go out of business with a single breach. That's how important that is. But we're out of time here, Nate, but I really appreciate you coming on. Fascinating information.
Thank you. If have any questions, please go to jamsadr.com, and you'll find more information about our organization and our neutrals.
Awesome. Sounds great. Guys, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Have a fantastic rest of your week. And don't forget, as always, cash flow is king.
To become part of Mr. Biz Nation, follow him on all social media platforms, or never miss a show by going to MrBizRadio.com. If you prefer free video content, visit the Mr. Biz YouTube channel or check out his streaming channel, which is available on 100 plus streaming platforms at MrBizNetwork.com.